Welcome to Shippers Forum. My name is Clemen Johan Ulriksen, and I will be your host today. Today, we have 2 weeks until the Tyra field will start redevelopment, or at least until the gas flows from the Tyra field will stop for a 3-year period coming to Denmark. And today's program is very much characterized by this. We will give you an update on our recent capacity auctions at Elland. We will tell you about perhaps the last 4 market measures that we are implementing to safeguard security of supply during the Tyra redevelopment. We have external presentations from the Danish Energy Agency regarding changes to the gas regulation in Denmark. We have the utility regulator coming to tell us about their market monitoring efforts. We have a presentation from Gas Storage Denmark, also Tyra redevelopment related. And then we have presentations on our incremental capacity process and on the new economic regulation, a revenue cap regulation that Energinet will be under from the year 2022. And finally, I will give you some thoughts on a changing gas market. If you have any questions today, then please raise your hand and we will provide you with a microphone. Before I leave you with the rest of the program, I have 3 rather short messages for you. The first one is regarding our rules for gas transport. We are updating them as we normally do, 1st of October. Most of the changes should be rather minor. There's a change regarding interruptible overnomination. Christian will come back to that later. You've had these rules for consultation for almost 3 weeks, and tomorrow is the deadline. So if you have any comments, please send them no later than tomorrow at noon. Any questions, comments on this? Next message. You don't have to read it all. It's just our normal basic Baltic Pipe template. The main message is Baltic Pipe is on schedule. Everything is proceeding as planned. We reached a major milestone in the summer with the National Planning Directive for Baltic Pipe being issued. And that basically means that the planning to go through different municipalities become much easier. So that's very good. And then we have a range of surveys going on, archaeological, geotechnical, as well as unexploded ordnance. And if you don't know what unexploded ordnance is, I just Googled it, and it means that we are looking for, you could say, unexploded ammunition from, for example, the Second World War. And that's in the Lillebælt. We are mainly looking for that. Third message is regarding the German market merger. As I guess you all know, the two market zones in Germany, Netconnect Germany and Gaspool, are to merge, and the plan is that it is going to happen in October 21. And of course, since Germany is a very important neighbor to us and to our gas market, we encourage you to follow this process. And I'd just like to highlight there's a website with a very easy and easy to remember name. I'll try to say it, Marktgebietszusammenlegung.de. And there's also a lot, or not a lot, some market dialogue meetings. And the next one is in Düsseldorf on the 5th of November. So please follow this process. Any questions or comments to any of my short messages? Then I'll leave the floor to Christian and the tire redevelopment.
Yes, well, I'll start with something else. Well, related to. I'll start with the Prisma auctions. There's been some auctions going on this summer, both in July and August. And if you follow it a little bit, then you might think, well, is there any more capacity left at Netherlands for the next 3 years? And I think I'll give you a good message that there's been, you can say, a bit of action in the auctions, but there's also capacity left. So let's see. It's going to be exciting. So this is the sheet we showed you just before summer, showing which capacities were on offer at Prisma for the northbound flow. I should say only focusing on the northbound flow today. The southbound is not that exciting the next 3 years. So only the northbound is in relevance here. And I'll be only focusing on what's in the red box because this is where the action happened. The rest of the auctions, there were no activity. So this is where the focus is going to be in the presentation. So starting with the first gas year, 2019, we actually saw for the first time over demand in an annual auction, one of the auctions that we are TSO in. So this is actually the result of the auction where we have, you can say, the kilowatt hours on offer on the bottom, and then we have the price steps going upwards. So we started with a floor price where we saw an over demand, and then we continued afterwards up one large price step where we saw the same over demand, and a third large price step where we also still saw over demand not as high, and then first at the large price step number 3 we saw there was an under demand. And then the Prisma auctions, they are designed in such a way that when we have an under demand in the large price steps, then we go backwards towards the small price steps. So what happened afterwards was that then opened a small price step. And I should say that the time slots here are quite large, so it actually took a couple of days before this was finished. We opened up with 1 3-hour time slot and then 1 hour and 1 hour. So it takes some time to go through an auction at a Prisma. And then in the end, we ended up with a small price step at 44 € where it ended. So that was the, you can say, surcharge. So the floor price is the regulated tariff in Denmark and Germany, and then the small price step is, it ended up with the 44 surcharge. Yes, so that was the first gas year in the tire redevelopment period. For the second year, you can almost see it's quite identical. We saw the same story happening, not as high at over demand, but there was also more capacity on offer. Exactly same price step we ended up with. So same story. So for the third for the third gas year of the tire redevelopment period, we saw there were actually requests for capacity, but there was not an over demand. So it ended up in the original round, or the first round, in this sense. So about half was sold in that auction. So this is the picture for the annual auctions from Germany to Denmark. Then moving on to the quarterly auctions, opening up in August, we again saw quite a lot of activity. Again, this is only between Capacities Deutschland and Energinet. We saw that there was a small booking in Q4, and then we saw actually that all capacity was sold out in Q1 2020, and no bookings in the following quarters. And this means actually that Capacities Deutschland has sold out of capacity for this quarter, Q1 2020. They have no more capacity left because in Germany, there's the reservation of to the short-term products is only towards the quarterly capacity. So this means that they don't reserve anything for monthly or daily capacity. So Capacities Deutschland completely sold out for Q1 2020. Yeah, quite a lot of action. So the conclusion is that we saw 2 long-term auctions that actually went on a few rounds and brought us a surcharge. Secondly, we also saw that all Capacities Deutschland's capacity is booked in the quarter Q1, but there's still capacity left because Open Grid Europe, we didn't see any action in Open Grid Europe towards Energinet, so there's still 644 megawatt hours left on the shelf for the short-term auctions, meaning you can say the quarters will be reopened again for the Q1, Q2, and Q3, and also the monthly and daily auctions. There are also capacity there left. And still, you can say Gas Deutschland also has capacity in all the other quarters than Q1. So that's the result of the auctions this summer. So we were following it quite intensely and thought it was exciting. I hope you did the same. Yeah, so are there any questions to this? No? Good. Well, I'll continue with the second topic I have today, which is the tire redevelopment. And as Clement mentioned, there's 2 weeks left for the date that we've all been waiting for in some way, before the tire is closed down for redevelopment. This is the latest ramp down curve, and you can say it says it all, that 19th of September, there's 0, and there's, yeah, exactly 2 weeks from now today. So that's going to be very exciting. Before this period, you can say, I found some old slides from what we've been doing the last couple of years, and it's actually been quite, you can say, a long journey. I can see that our first user group on market measures took place in March 2017. So it's almost 2.5 years where we've been discussed what to do when Tyra is redeveloped. We can also see it's an old slide because it was actually a target date that was in December 2019 at that point, but it's not anymore now, it's September. So that has changed also, so less time for the development of measures. And we started out with inviting you all to just discuss what should we look at, and we had a clean sheet. We didn't have any measures on beforehand. We came up with a lot of ideas together with you that we were working on for some time. Many of them are, you can say, some of them are already implemented, some of them we didn't go further with, some of them are still missing. That's the ones I want to speak about today. But you could say one example of something that has happened is that we have had emergency workshops a couple of times. We have had introduced the imbalance prices, has been changed 1st of April to prepare for the tire redevelopment period. So there are a number of measures that's already implemented. But I'll just go through the last 4, I'll give a status of the last 4, whereof 2 of them is actually implemented now, and 2 of them are still on the way. So I'll just go through one by one. So the first one is the safe storage level, which was formerly known as the minimal storage filling. So it had a different name, but it's same concept, new name. In short, I won't go into detail with the calculation here. I would suggest that you visit our homepage to see how you can say the basis for its calculation, the assumptions behind, and everything. But in short, you can say it shows that this shows the inventory level we have today compared to an expected offtake of gas in Denmark and Sweden, and compare it again to a calculation of what we think should be installed for a cold period. And even though this graph is maybe a week old, you can say, I don't think it's not become any worse. It's probably become a little bit better. I think we have a 98% storage inventory level right now. So everything looks very good at this point in time. But this will be continuously updated so we can follow the development of the storage filling compared to what we think should be in storage for a cold period. So I suggest you go and visit and see the details, and please get back to us if there's any, you can say, detailed questions, or you need to have us to present it in more detail. But if there's any questions now, I'll be happy. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything. No? I'll move on to number 2 topic, which is the force majeure balancing price. This was implemented towards 1st of April. But what was lacking or missing was the actual, you can say, possibility to view what the price development was, and you can say to have the prices listed. And this is now available. We have our public download on Energinet Online, where you can find all the balancing prices. And in this list, you can also now find the force majeure price. I can say that the concept is that we calculate a force majeure price, which is the highest price of 3 day-ahead prices, the Danish gas price and the 2 German market area gas prices during a storage season. And this is the force majeure price. And every time a new highest price comes up during this season, this is the new price we will use if we go in a force majeure situation, probably an emergency situation, and need to use this gas price for balancing gas. Right now the price is 15.4 euro per megawatt hours, which probably doesn't sound very scary to many of you, but compared to the prices we see today, it's actually quite high. But yeah, well, let's see. This is the picture right now, so it could change during winter, I guess. Yeah. The third topic is the Prisma secondary. Today we only offer the very simple solution of the over-the-counter possibility at Prisma, where you can find somebody to you can contact somebody or talk to bilaterally with each other, and then find out you want to transfer capacity between you, and then you can use Prisma for this. And this is the very simple solution. For 1st October, we will include the full picture of what Prisma has to offer on the secondary platform. This is the first come, first serve possibility, where you can both publicly or anonymously trade the secondary capacity. And the same also for the call for orders, which is a tender process where you can make an auction for capacity. So we are opening up for these possibilities, also because we think that the anonymous part of it is quite interesting also for you, because then it could enforce or encourage you to trade more secondary capacity, and could be relevant for the Tyra redevelopment period to do so. Also, the assignment possibility is introduced. So this means the transfer of use is just that you transfer, the use of the capacity, but the assignment you can also assign the full contract with the payment obligations also. So these possibilities will be introduced also. Yeah, any questions to this? I'll move on. Please say if there's anything. Last topic for me right now is the interoperable over-nomination within day possibility, which we'll also introduce for 1st of October. This is a possibility where you can nominate even though you don't have capacity at all, or you want to nominate above your capacity you have. It's a possibility that opens up if firm capacity is sold out on the Danish side. It's already a possibility on the German side, I believe. So if firm capacity is sold out, you don't have to book any more capacity in theory. You can just nominate your within day and then see what happens. And then if there's room for this nomination, then it will go through and you will be allocated. If you're not able to have it allocated, then you can say it will be curtailed, but then you don't pay any price for it. You only pay if it's actually allocated and flowed. So in that sense, it's a possibility that's with no risk in that sense. And the price is the day-ahead price. Just the same concept as we have towards the end consumer market in Denmark. That if you are allocated above your capacity, then you get a day-ahead capacity contract based on your highest flow, hourly flow. Yeah, I think that's about it. Are there any questions to this concept? No? Well, yeah, Stanislav. Just a sec. You need to.
Okay, thank you. Gas system. We have also this day ahead within day but could you come back to the price? Because you mentioned it's the corresponding to the highest hour.
Yeah.
But if the nomination is kind of the profile, so the first 3 hours are lower than the next 3 hours,
yeah,
then the price is according to the highest hour, or just for this period from the, let's say, peaks?
The highest hour.
So also back?
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, time for the next topic, I guess.
Thank you, Christian. like to give the floor to Chris Novak from the Danish Energy Agency. Just to frame your presentations, last year at the Shippers Forum, we had a lot of talks about the tire redevelopment, as Christian mentioned, and a lot of the dialogue regarding the roles in safeguarding security of supply. I think that's something that you will come back to in your presentation. What are the roles in securing supply?
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you for having me here today. I will try to give a very brief presentation on this minor change in our regulation. It's not a new regime. Actually, it's just an adjustment, as we call it. But the basic idea is that the competence of each party governs the responsibility for security of supply. And actually, you can find this wording in the Union law regulation regarding security measures of security of supply. It says that quite clearly in Article 3 of that specific regulation, 2007-1938, that the Commission, the Member States, and natural gas undertakings are responsible for security of supplies within their competence. And what we have been looking into is actually the last bit of that, the responsibility and competence of the natural gas undertakings. And we have discovered that in our wording, in our current Danish gas regulation, it's said quite bluntly that a TSO was responsible for taking care of the security of supply in Denmark. Of course, implicitly, you would know that a TSO is not capable of taking care of the entire situation of security of supply, because you're not capable of buying and selling gas, making sure that gas is available for the traders for every day. But it was not clear in the law. So this is what our change of law is all about. We are trying to make the wording more clear. And this is actually what we are proposing. We had the current wording in Article 12, Paragraph 1, Number 3, which will be changed from, it's in Danish, I'm sorry, but varetager forsyningssikkerheden i Danmark to instead varetager opgaver vedrørende forsyningssikkerheden. And now I'm just trying to very roughly translate it. It means that instead of maintaining the security of supply in Denmark, it says maintaining maintaining certain tasks regarding the security of supply in Denmark, because there is this implicit limit to what a TSO actually can do and cannot do. And I don't know if you're all aware of this, but any Danish regulation is always accompanied by explanatory remarks in the bill, and this is also the case here. And in these remarks, we have had the opportunity to explain more how the gas system functions and how the various parties in the gas market interacts. So, for example, we have made it quite clear that a TSO is, of course, responsible for their infrastructure and maintaining it in a good, orderly fashion, and they are responsible for also selling capacity and all this stuff. But the obligation to make sure that the gas is actually present at the day is not a responsibility for the TSO. This is what we have written in the remarks. And I can tell you that the bill has been in public consultation during the summer, and we have had a lot of, not a lot, but we had some responses and remarks, and they were all quite positive, and I'm sure that a lot of you have read it and chosen not to give any comments, so that makes me quite happy, because it makes my job easier. But the plan is so far that the public consultation period is over, and it will be proposed to Parliament here in October, in the beginning of October. And so far we haven't. We're expecting it to run rather smoothly, because it's a technical bill. It's not a new regime. We're not changing the status of anything. We are more or less just making sure that the wording of the law is right according to what the parties of the gas market is actually responsible for. And as I mentioned, you could see all of this is governed by union law, and I referred to this regulation and the Article 3 where it says that natural gas undertakings and then the Commission, the member states, are responsible for security of supply within their respective areas of activity and competence. And this is the whole idea. And this is not a new thing. It's actually old wording, but also given the situation with the Tyra complex, which is being refurbished, we have had more attention to this area and what we could do to make sure that all of you know how to act under the Tyra regulation. And we found that this was the least thing we could do to you to make sure that the wording of the law was actually quite clear on this matter. And regarding the implicit limitations to what a TSO can do and cannot do in regard of security of supply, we all know the gas directive, and in particular, you know that natural gas undertakings, according to the definition in the directive, is quite broad. It includes both all of you and also the TSO, and maybe in a future regime you could have a more specific distinction, but right now we have that general term for all participants of the gas market, and we just have to make sure that when we transpose it into our law and our regime, it's quite clear who takes care of what. And what I referred to about that a TSO cannot make sure that gas is available for the gas market every day is because of the unbundling requirement, which says that a TSO is not allowed to buy and sell gas. And in practical terms, if a TSO were responsible for making sure that gas was available for the trade every day, it would mean that it would have to buy and sell gas and physically transport it to the market and then resell it. So it's actually just not possible to make such a demand to a TSO. And yes, I would also like to add that, even though it's not on my presentation, we are aware that the task for Energinet as a TSO is quite different in the sectors between electricity and gas, but I'm quite assured that all of you know this already because you are professional market participants and know that it's very different energy systems, and electricity and gas just does not compare in all manners. Yeah, and of course also the bill, it includes a lot of minor adjustments as well, but it's not really relevant for the issue around security of supply, so I would not talk about them today. But if any of you have any questions, I only have these 3 slides, then you are more than welcome to ask, and I will try to elaborate on it, if there are any.
Thanks. Jacob Peterson. I'm just curious, are there any sort of sanctions related to this if they do not undertake their duty? I mean, if not, it seems I don't know what changes in the wording will matter if there are no sanctions.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's actually a good question. It's also something which has been remarked during the public consultation process, and our response to that will be published as well. But I can already tell you that the main idea about our gas regulation is not to regulate the market participants as such. It is to regulate the infrastructure owners as Energinet, a TSO. So we had a debate, an internal debate, whether or not to make a large change in the regime where we would actively regulate market participants. We chose not to do that because we think that so far the market works quite well and we see no issues around this, and we're not even sure that it is an actual issue, but we want to eradicate the doubt. So there's no sanctions related to this, other than it's quite clear now, after this bill will be passed for everybody, that a TSO can never be responsible for making sure that the gas is actually available. However, this should, in our mind, make sure that your customers, on the other hand, also know this, because the law is for everybody can read it, and everybody are free to ask us questions about how to understand this. So when your customers know that Energinet is not responsible for making sure that the gas is available for each consumption day, the customers and you will have, we hope, a good negotiation about the terms for your contracts. But of course, this is not something that we regulate, and we are quite happy, we are quite sure that it functions quite well as it is. So it's just an adjustment. It's not a change in regime. That's the main point. So we're not introducing new mechanisms or new rules or anything. We are just updating the wording of the regulation. Does it make sense?
It sounds like a no.
Yeah, there are no sanctions. Sorry, I'm a lawyer, so you know a lot of words. But then there are no sanctions attached to this. It's basically a free market. You have to do whatever you want. You can just not say that it's the TSO who has the responsibility to make sure that the gas is available. That's more or less it. You're welcome. Are there anyone else?
Peter Biltzon from Ørsted. One reflection, at least, reading through the revised law, then it actually started us asking a lot of questions. When you look all the way from the EU level, you have sort of a joint and common responsibility of ensuring the security of supply. And that is at least a new wording, and it sort of starts with the Commission and ends with the supplier. At some point, that's maybe not so much you, but maybe as much to Energinet. I think it would be nice just to have a user group or here where we walk through that. Okay, what does that mean? What are the responsibilities of the different parties, and how is that translated into actions?
Yes, I think we will both elaborate a bit on it. As you know, there's a new regime in this regulation regarding solidarity, and it imposes a lot of new obligations on the member states, and we're trying to work it out right now, how to figure out a model that works. But definitely, we also appreciated your remarks during the public consultations, and we are always open for dialogue at the Danish Energy Agency, and we would be more than happy to make it more clear, and we encourage you to say whenever something is unclear, because it is a difficult area. And yeah, do you have something to add, Clement?
Yeah. I think it's a very good proposal, Peter. I think we already have these emergency workshops that we're going to have during the Tyra redevelopment. So I think that could be on the agenda there. I think we'll take that in.
Yeah, I have nothing further for my part, but are there further questions or anything? No? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have some bottles of wine.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And we are so lucky that we have presentations from not one, but two government institutions today. So now we are a bit wiser on the roles in security of supply, and now we will all become a bit wiser on how we should behave in the market, at least those of us who are in the market. So now we have the Danish utility regulator, Maria Bosen, will give a presentation.
So my my brief presentation will firstly take you through the main takeaways from our most recent market monitoring. looking back at 2018, but also the first month of 2019. And this is mainly to give a bit of a context and setting the scene for what we're planning to do going ahead. Gas production in 2018 was just below 4 BCM, which was the lowest level in 5 years, and also 15% lower than in 2017. On the other hand, we had a new production source, biogas, which took up more space in the system than we've seen in the past. So in December 2018, it surpassed 10% of the Danish consumption. And the Danish consumption has been relatively stable during the last 5 years. So we're looking at a relatively stable demand at this point in time. That might change, of course. North Sea production has been going down a little bit through this period, and we see biogas production increasing. Also talking about the North Sea production, 2017 and 18 was a period with a lot of ownership changes in the North Sea, both regard to production facilities, but also with infrastructure, such as the Tyra West F3 pipeline. Doesn't have any meaning in the figure as such, but it's also something we're following quite closely at the regulator. Import and export, also an area that we're following quite closely. Export in 2018 was 1.5 BCM, somewhat less than the year before. But this was also a year where the connection to the Netherlands, Tyra West F3, was closed down for a period in preparation of the Tyra platform rebuilding. Import, which is above the line in the figure, it's mainly import from the Norwegian field Trym. There's the exception of March 2018, which was quite a different month compared to the rest of the period. This was the month of the cold spell, of Energinet's early warning declaration. So here we saw quite significant import from Germany. Looking at transmission capacity, this is perhaps not fully updated when it comes to reserve capacity compared to the numbers that Christian showed just a few minutes ago. But the main takeaways from the slide doesn't change. The flow is generally going towards Germany. At least that was the case in the last 20 months. We do expect that to change for the 3 years ahead. There has been sufficient capacity for both import and export. And when we look at the dotted lines, which are not that dotted here, but you have a light green one above on the import side, and you have the darker green one. It kind of shows us a pattern that the import capacity on the Danish side tends to be booked on longer contracts, while on the export side, it seems to be much shorter contracts since it follows the gas flow very, very closely. That in itself doesn't cause any action for us, but it gives us some insight about what we will be looking at and how the market is behaving. Also at Elon, I don't have a specific slide figure on it, but since 2015, we've been looking quite closely at the behavior and transportation of gas at the Elon border point. Specifically, we've been looking at the transportation compared to the price signals between the Danish and German markets. And during the last 18, 20 months we've been analyzing this, we haven't seen any indications of systematic or significant transportation taking place against the price signals. And that's quite a notable improvement compared to 2015 when we first conducted this analysis. Looking at storage, we have two quite different pictures here in the figure. We have 2018, which was a very unusual year. You had the cold spell, you had the early warning declaration, giving us a few different records in storage terms. There was 4 consecutive days where the withdrawals were at max capacity. The storage filling was at 12% in the middle of April. And then by comparison, we have the first 8 months of 2019, where the filling never went below 50% in March or April. And by the beginning of August, it had surpassed 95%. So quite a different storage here. And looking even further ahead with storage, we've been looking a bit at the reserved capacity because that's quite central in the period with the Tyra shutdown, how the storage facilities are used. So looking at the current year, all capacity has been reserved. Looking at the next storage year, as of September, 1st of September this year, 86% of the capacity had been reserved. Looking at trade and market dynamics, we obviously also follow the price quite closely, and also here we have a 18 period, which is quite distinct, and then we have a 19 period, which is quite different as well. So there was some price recovery in 2018, with the price being 26% higher on average than it was in 2017. We saw a significant price peak in March during the early warning and cold spell period, it hasn't been this high since the early warning in 2013. During this period, the Danish price has generally been below the German and Dutch prices. This is a trend we've seen going on in 19 as well, where we've also seen all of the prices going down. So now we've almost reached a new record level. In June, the 29th of June, the price was the second lowest level it's ever been on the ETF. So that's quite a different gas market than what we saw in 2018. Trade volumes. 2018, we saw record volumes on the gas exchange, a Pegas ETF, the highest volume since the establishment of the exchange in 2008. The vast majority of the trades were spot products. But there's quite a significant, also part of my legend disappeared. The green space is ETF, and the big chunk of blue is GTF. And as of October 18, we saw a very sharp and distinct increase in the volumes delivered on GTF. We looked at the different supply sources, and the increase isn't caused by increased gas being supplied into the Danish market. So that's what our look at that showed. Coming on to what's probably most interesting to you, because you know the gas market probably better than we do, but this is what we will be focusing on in 2019 and also the years to come, based on our observations in the market monitoring, but also the knowledge we have of the gas market. Generally, we will follow the shutdown of Tyra and the Danish gas market quite closely during this period. More specifically, we will be looking at how the storage facilities are utilized, since they're quite central in the period we're looking into at the moment. We'll also be looking at the Elon connection and trade behavior, transportation behavior happening at this border point. Finally, we will more generally look at gas prices, market dynamics, trade behavior in the bilateral trades, in the exchange trades, just to see if anything's going on to harm the well-functioning of the gas market. It is a quite special period that we're looking into, so some of the fundamentals and dynamics might change, giving rise to situations that are not in favor for the general market. Besides the focus areas that we want to look at, we are also looking at generally developing our market monitoring. And the rationale for doing that is we want to make sure our market monitoring match our strategic focus, but also make sure it matches the market that we want to monitor. And in 2019, we had a new strategy. We were basically reborn as a new organization in 2018, and then we had a new strategy in 2019, which is called Strong and Effective Regulatory Oversight. And two of the strategic focus areas in that strategy is quite relevant for market monitoring. We want to make sure that what we do has an impact on society. We don't monitor the market for the sake of monitoring it. We do it because we want to make sure the markets work. Also, we have a focus area called open dialogue and clear communication, which is two ways. We want to make sure we tell you what we see in a clear way, but we also want to be open for dialogue. At the same time, we're looking at a gas market that is changing faster than it's ever done. And a lot of the changes that are going on are quite comprehensive, and some of them are even quite structural, changing the gas market significantly. And all of this boils down to that we want to do some monitoring that's more adaptable, more dynamic, and even closer to the market than what we've done in the past. And one of the parts of developing our monitoring is also changing the way we report on our findings and our main takeaways. So before summer, we published a report with our key findings from 2018 and the first months of 19, along with our focus areas looking 1, 2, 3 years ahead. The full report is in Danish, but we do have an English summary, which is also available on our website. The brief presentation I started with is taken from this, so I've already given away a lot of the key points, but there is, of course, a bit more detail on the different topics, also in the summary. Are there any questions? Otherwise, we have a few updates on different topics from the Danish utility regulator. But I'll just give you a chance to answer questions before we go into those updates. No? Then I will start with a brief update. Before summer, we invited you and other stakeholders in the gas market to provide comments and feedback about the expected future gas regulation. We received feedback and comments from a number of market participants and stakeholders. And we are now looking at it and will summarize it and publish it and make it available. Yes.
Hello? I think this one I'm done that.
Just. Thank you. You can all hear me. It's just to give you a very short update on the seasonal factors case. As you probably all know, in March 2019, Energinet submitted a proposal for approval by the regulator of seasonal factors to be applied at the Ellen point for a limited period of 3 years, starting on October the 1st, 2019, and then for the 3 years of the Tyra rebuild period. We were not able to look at this and approve it before before summer, which was required in order for it to have effect from the new gas year starting on 1st October. That would have required that we should be able to approve it before the 1st of June 2019, as seasonal factors and reserve prices have to be published 1 month before the annual yearly capacity auction at Prisma. And that auction took place on the 1st of July already. So that would have required us to be very fast in our case handling, so that was not possible. But Energinet maintains the proposal for seasonal factors to be applied during the Tyra rebuild period, now only then for 2 gas years instead of 3 gas years. And this is just to inform you that we're still dealing with the case. We are now resuming the case handling, and we will treat the case during the autumn, and we hope to be able to make a decision on this methodology suggestion in early December, at least before Christmas, also because it has some impact on the booking of storage capacities which are coming up around that time. So just to inform you. Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay.
Well, thank you. I guess you can share the bottle of wine, since Henrik also came up and talked.
I think he deserved that. Yeah.
Or you can just take them alone. So, Well, thank you very much for your presentations. It's good to see that you follow the market so closely, and also will do it in the upcoming years. I personally really like the table you made with the important events in 2018. I think that was a nice table that I could show my boss to show why we've been so busy. Now we have proof from the regulator. And also, thank you for the update, Henrik. I think it's good to have clarity as soon as possible regarding these seasonal factors. So good to know that they will come in early December. Now it's time for coffee break. So go have some cake and go have some coffee. Next up, we have a presentation from Gas Storage Denmark with Iljana presenting.
Give you an update for the following topics. Status on options, release of additional volume capacity this year, status on the Capacitynext 3 years, short price information on short-term firm products and interruptible capacity next year. Invitation for bilateral dialogue for the sale of capacity next storage year. And I will end my presentation with a happy announcement, ready for winter. And at the end, you will have the chance to ask questions, if any. June this year, we had an auction day where we held 2 auctions at the same day. In the morning, we sold option for a short option for 2,000 gigawatt storage capacity for delivery next 3 years. In the afternoon, we sold another option, 1,000 gigawatt hour for delivery next 3 years. The first option expired last Monday. The next option, the long one, expires on 31st of January next year. The result of the short option is 300 gigawatt hours sold for 2 years duration. On one of my next slides, I will show you what is the sale plan for the remaining 1,700 gigawatts for next storage year. But first, I would like to give you a short information on the additional volume capacity released until now for the current storage year. As you know, the ramp down of the domestic production started in January this year. And originally, we were expecting to see much more German gas in the Danish gas system. And according to our expectations at that time, we adjusted the marketable capacities back in February 2018, and we made an announcement same month. What happened since then is that a combination of favorable developments has made possible for us to release additional capacity, as it happened that we have non-utilized storage space. It is a combination of Danish quality gas predominant with import from Germany kept on relatively limited level. We have a team of engineers and technicians that are assessing the storage filling and the quality of gas in storage on ongoing basis. And since April this year, they released additional volumes on 4 occasions. It is a small, really small volumes, but it was very welcome releasements due to the market development we have seen during the summer. So those are the 4 auctions we have held, and we had a huge demand on each auction, ending with surprisingly high prices. In the table you can see the details for each option. I can inform you that for the time being, we do not expect to be able to release any more storage capacity rest of year. This diagram shows the situation with the capacities for the current year and the next 3 years. Current year, everything is sold. The next 3 years has been adjusted after the closure of the option last Monday. The 300 gigawatts we sold are now added to the bar sold capacity. The remaining 1,700 gigawatts are added now to the bar for sale. And then we still have the long-term option, 1,000 gigawatts running until 31st of January. Let's see what will happen with these volumes. And in the bottom, you can see we have reserved 2,000 gigawatts for emergency supply for the TSO. That is the situation now. On our web page, on the front page, you can follow the development anytime. The diagram is updated on daily basis. On one of my next slides, I will show you about our sales plans for the available capacity next year. In respect of the pricing for short-term firm products and interruptible capacity, there have been made an announcement on our homepage. You can read it on the link in the bottom of the slide, but bottom line, those are monthly prices, vary on monthly basis. When the storage is under pressure, the prices are rising. That's why it's very important that you follow the pricing. And the current monthly prices will be valid until September 2020. It means that now we're rolling the prices forward, and you know your summer prices next year injection. Our plan is to make an assessment during the coming winter and to decide for the prices for the remaining months of the next storage year. There will be an announcement about it in Q1 next year. Another announcement: how are we going to sell the capacity next storage year? Our plan is to take a good chunk of it and sell it on bilateral basis. Therefore, we will contact all our storage customers for starting bilateral dialogue in the coming months. Naturally, you are also welcome to contact us already tomorrow. This information can be reviewed on the link in the bottom of the slide. And then one happy announcement. This diagram shows the filling level now compared to the filling level last year. And what can I say? Yes, on behalf of all my colleagues in the gas storage, I would like to express our satisfaction and also our relief that we managed to sell the capacity and that our customers have utilized all of the capacity and filled up. It means that Denmark has enough gas in storage in case there will be cold winter, and well, what more to say? We're looking forward to it. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Iliana. I think it was a very happy message that you ended with. After all this time we've been preparing for the tire redevelopment, it's very good to see that for the first year we are in as a positive situation regarding the storage filling that one could imagine. Going from capacity sales in the storage to perhaps future capacity sales in the transmission system, Christian will tell us about the incremental capacity process that we are conducting and where we are now.
Yeah. Thank you, Clement. I'll just have a short presentation on where we are on the incremental. I only have one slide, and you've seen it before, so that's fairly easy. But I'll just say a few words on where we are in the process, and also where we are, you can say, actually on two, you can say, sub-processes. So I'll come back to what I mean about that. But we received non-binding demand indications until the 26th of August. This was actually valid for all TSOs in Europe. Energinet decided, as we have presented before, to broaden the scope of the incremental capacity process, so it was not only for interconnection points, i.e. being only Elland, but for all points in our system. So you can say we are running two separate processes at the same time, but right now they are running together, but maybe now's the time to split them up. I'll come back a little bit back to what I mean about that. But the two processes, on the top we have the formal process that we are running for Elland. And so far we have followed it also on the, you can say, incremental process for the rest of the system, followed the same dates, 26th of August being the deadline for non-binding demand indications. And now the next step is that we need to make a report, or that means two reports, because we're going to make one report for Elland separately, which is we are legally bound to do via the NC-CAM. And then we're also going to make a report for, you could say, the rest of the system to follow up on indications we've had here. I can say that we have actually had non-binding demand indications in both processes, so to speak. So we have actually, and this is, you could say, a story behind the top one about Elland is that Gasnet Deutschland has decided to reduce the capacity level going southbound from Denmark to Germany to 0 from next year, which means that there are no firm capacity available on their side of the border going towards Germany. And this is something that there has been responses to in our process here. I can say that both us and the German TSOs have received responses on this. So this is something that we need to, you can say, now we need to make a report towards 21st of October, where we reflect on these indications and see what is the next steps to do. So that's a requirement from the EU process that we do this. For the Danish process, so to speak, or for the rest of the system, we have also, as I said, received indications. We are going to make a separate report on this, also before 21st of October, but then the process is not necessarily the same as the top one, because you can say the way we are going to, if there's indications that we need to go further with, we might have a different process. Here it's auctions at you can say at a border point. It's not all points we have auctions at, so it has to be a different process, and might be also different timings. So this is something that we'll do also. So you can say both reports before 21st of October, but they are different, and also you can say the outlook of how we are moving forward might also be different. But yeah, so that's something to keep an eye on. Are there any questions to this? Yes, Peter?
I have a question to this strange disappearance of firm capacity from Denmark to Germany. That is not just for the Tyra period, but also continues after that. It's just as a shipper, it's just mind-blowing that you have a EU's sort of political drive to integrate markets. And you talk a lot about cooperation, and we make huge investments in the system, and then sort of from one day to the next, the capacity is just downgraded. And now we have the benefit of the TSO and the regulator and the Danish authorities. So maybe if you could sort of elaborate, what is the next step? How can that happen without any consultation at all? And what can be done to rectify the situation? Because clearly that would de-link the Danish-Swedish market from the liquid markets where we have forward prices in the northern part of Europe.
Thank you for the question, Peter. I can start, and maybe there might be some from the regulator or somebody that wants to comment also. But I can say from our side, I think we're on the same page here, because you can say we have capacity available to go to Germany. So for us, it's also a bit strange that capacity is suddenly removed overnight, so to speak. We have had dialogue with our regulator about it, also mentioning that this has happened, just to say that. And we are also in dialogue with the German TSOs about this. I think that it's a very good thing that there's come a signal in the process that actually says that there is indications saying that capacity is of use also in the future. So it's not just removed. I think that's something that the German TSOs needs to take serious. And that, you can say, the report we are doing is together with, we are doing that in cooperation with both Capacities Deutschland and Open Grid Europe as TSOs on the other side. And this is, you can say, something we will work on reflecting in the report, that this is, these indications have come, and we need to, yeah, to do something about it, so to speak. Yeah? I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to comment at this point in time. Tony?
No, it's merely a question. What is the explanation from the German side?
The explanation?
Yeah.
As far as I understood, it's due to that the capacity to, you can say, keep the capacity there. They need to do some investments or something like that. There's some investments needed to have the capacity still in place. That costs some money, and they want to see a signal before they, you can say, actually want to do these investments. That's my understanding. Yes? Anybody else? Questions, comments to this topic? No?
Well, thank you, Christian. So moving from, perhaps future increase in capacity to the for surely in a new economic regulation of Energinet gas TSO. Lasse will tell us about the process. Here you go.
Yeah, hello, my name is Lasse Trøjborg Krog, and I'm going to introduce to you the basic elements of the new economic regulation of Energinet gas TSO. Back in May last year, we got this political agreement that you see here, called Future-Proof Economic Regulation of Energinet. And it basically says that the purpose of this political agreement is to create more transparency in how Energinet manage and run their company, and in what investments they choose to undertake. And it wants to give more incentive to be more efficient, and the purpose is also to secure an efficient green transition. This political agreement introduces 4 main changes compared to the current regulation. One is that we, in the future, will get a revenue cap on our revenues, which means that it puts a ceiling on how high our revenues can get. It also gives incentives to more efficiency through benchmarking. And 3, it introduces a return on investments that could be, for example, a weighted average cost of capital method, as we see in many other utility sectors. And it also introduces forward-looking plans for our new investments and for our system operations. And these forward-looking plans, we have to publish them, and they have to be approved by the Danish utility regulator. So this is some quite significant changes to how we are regulated in Energinet. And these changes applies for both gas TSO and for our sister companies in electricity transmission. And then how do we see it here in Energinet? We see this new regulation as a way to secure an efficient transition in a close dialogue with our stakeholders. So we have a political agreement that focuses on transition, efficiency and transparency, but we also in the future see massive changes in the gas sector, for example, Baltic pipe, sector coupling, and biomethane increasing. So we see this new regulation as a way to be more forward-looking and future-proof in the regulation setup. And we see it as a way to support dialogue between us and our key stakeholders and the utility regulator and energy agency, which has to approve our forward-looking plans. And of course, it also gives us more incentive to be even more efficient. And of course, we will still have a continued strong focus on socio-economics and high security of supply. The process for implementing this new regulation is that right about now we are eagerly expecting an internal consultation of the legislation, which runs here for the next 2 months. Then it goes to an external consultation in November and December, where all of you, of course, are welcome to give your point of view to this regulation. Then it is introduced to the Parliament in next year, February, March. Final adoption in the summer, and then we will have the first regulation period from 2022 to 2024. And then we would like to invite everybody interested to info meetings about this new economic regulation, where the Danish Energy Agency will come and tell you much more about it in details than I'm able to today. There will be the first one, 17th September in Danish at the Danish Energy Agency. It will be quite general. It will both be electricity and gas. And then we also have the 25th September in English here at Energinet in Pederstrup. The Danish Energy Agency will also come here, and it will be solely focused on gas TSO, our gas TSO regulation. So relevant for many of you in here. And we will send out a gas news with an invitation to this info meeting. This is a more detailed agenda for the two info meetings. And we really encourage you to listen to what the Energy Agency has to say, and give your point of view to the Energy Agency on how your take is on this regulation. Yes, that's my presentation of the new economic regulation starting from 2022. Any questions about this? No?
Well, thank you, Lasse. Now I'm the only person standing between you and freedom. I have one presentation and then some final remarks. Just to follow up on what Lasse presented, we are welcoming this new economic regulation to have even more transparency of our efforts to be efficient. And we are certainly doing what we can to make the gas tariffs as low as possible, to attract as many players as possible, and to have an as attractive gas market as possible. And on that topic, we are looking into a world that is changing. I think it's obvious to many people that there are a lot of changes going on in the world right now, and there's a growing awareness that we need to do whatever we can to combat global warming, to combat climate change. You've seen some presentations in the last three Shippers Forum, where we have dealt with this topic in different ways. We had NCOG presenting the European developments back in December. In March, we had our CEO of the gas TSO, Torben Brabo, tell us about the gas strategy, both on a European level and on a national level and on a company level. And last time, I talked to you about our efforts to try to prepare for the future and prepare our rules, our market rules for the future, both in terms of the green transition and in terms of the Baltic Pipe coming in. But I think things are now moving even faster, at least in terms of the green transition. At Energinet, we are owned by the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Utilities. So basically, the minister is our owner. And this June, we got a new owner. And his name is Dan Jørgensen, and he's from the Social Democrats. And he is spearheading a very ambitious political agenda to combat climate change. It's an agenda where Denmark is at the forefront in the world of combating this. And they've set a target, the government and the political parties backing them, that we have to reduce our CO2 emissions by 70% in 2030. Very, very ambitious target, and I'm sure that most of you know this. But that means that we have to do even more as a gas market to prepare for the future. I think there are two ways, at least I can imagine, that is we have to have the proportion of green gases in the gas system have to increase. As it was mentioned earlier today by Maria, I think, we are past 10% biomethane production in the gas grid of the total Danish consumption, and that's very good, and the number is increasing rapidly. Also, I think we are moving into a process also with a gas strategy coming on a national level, where we have to see what the gas system can do to help other parts of the energy sector to help in the green transition. And I guess there are more ways that we can help than I can imagine. In this process, we would like to involve you shippers as much as possible. And I think these shippers forums that we have could be a very good venue to discuss and to have some opinions on how we move forward as a gas market in this world where we have to move towards low carbon. So I welcome you all to contact us if you are interested in giving a presentation on your view of what yourself can do or what somebody else could do on this path towards low carbon. And of course, you are also very welcome to contact us for bilateral meetings if you are more comfortable giving your messages that way. But I think it could be very fruitful for our common process to have the dialogue in the open. So I hope you would consider coming here and presenting. Any comments on this or questions? Then I'll give the floor to myself and to my final remarks. In June, I said that you should watch out for the new Remit portal, the new version of our gas market message that we expected to launch there. Unfortunately, we ran into something called IT difficulties. So it has not been launched, the new portal. But now I'm giving you a new promise, and I hope I can keep that. That we are launching the portal on 1st of October. And the portal has some new features, as I explained last time. But what I really like to highlight now is that you need to subscribe again. So your old subscription is gone as of 1st of October. And there's a difference whether you need to just read the messages or whether you need to publish. It's more, your process is a bit more difficult if you need to publish. It's not that difficult, but you have to sign an agreement with us. So please go to this link that you can find in the slides afterwards. We'll send you the slides tomorrow, and start the sign-up process. But then it's important to remember that this does not mean if you're signing up for the first time, then you won't receive any messages until the 1st of October. So this is for a new portal. And we will do the switch on the 1st of October. Any questions, comments? Yes, Maria?
I think I might need a microphone.
Yeah, sure. Where is it? It's here. And thank you for reminding me of the procedure.
So speaking of Remit, ACER, the Agency for Cooperation Between Energy Regulators, has recently published an updated version of their guidance on how to publish inside information in an efficient and timely manner. And one of them is that they want people to use the platforms. Using own company websites is a thing of the past. There's a transition period, but ACER is pointing towards platforms like this one. So I would recommend everyone to read the updated guidance from ACER.
And I guess that means that a lot of you should sign up and have the possibility to publish news.
Yes, at least in some time into the future, ACER's recommendation or guidance will be that it's not published efficiently if it's not published on an inside information platform, such as this one.
Yes. thank you for that. Well, we had an agenda where we have talked a lot about tire redevelopment. I think that my main takeaway is that we are ready in many levels. We are very ready for the first winter, and hopefully we'll also be ready for the next winters. But let's keep that for later. I think it requires that we are all on our feet, that we are ready, that we are vigilant, and we are prudent, and I'm sure we all will be that. Then I think we will think and hope we will have a nice winter with very good security of supply in Denmark. So I wish you all a safe journey home, and thank you for today.